Hello and welcome to the Wednesday check-in presented by the Goxteen News Network. I'm your host, Landy, and today is October 15th, 2025, and we're looking at Bitcoin again, of course, today, and we're going to talk a little bit about this lower high that has printed on the daily, as it is a reversal setup for the bears coming off of a higher low close print for the bulls. Now, doesn't mean much right now, especially that higher low close. The big point on Monday was after the big flush out, that even though we did see a higher low on a closing basis, we had a lower low swing. So the point was to watch out for the lower high. And of course, this lower high coming in a very important area right around $116,000, and that's the bottom side of the overhead resistance between 116 and 118 that I did talk about. Now, I've mentioned that we've got kind of a pretty wide set stance on the bands here. This is a trend reversal setup, but the only way this confirms is below the actual low. You're going to see a lot of people get really bearish if it closes below the close open higher low here, where it closed basically right on it. But in reality, right around this 110.7 to 110.8 area doesn't really mean much. We're only going to see confirmation on closes below the low here at 107 and that lower second standard deviation. Of course, that'd be below the bottom side of the range over here, and that would put it below the daily higher low consolidation before we saw the new highs up here. And that's where I would look for, 104 to 106 as an area, but 105 specifically, splitting the difference. That is the next really big area right around this low here. This is also another big daily area. It's kind of, right around a key level of, kind of a support resistance zone flip from the bearish side to the bullish side prior to the move up to 123,000. So, a big area down there. And then the next area below would be a confluent area around a big weekly, of course, coming in the low side structure on 101 to that 98,225. Now we would be getting expansion on a move like that, right? Below the lower second, drop the actual low at 107. We would see expansion of the Bollinger Bands again, probably placing that lower third standard deviation right around that 101 to that 98,225. But none of that's happened yet, and this is a big weekly level on the lows here for the low side structure, and then of course that's right in and around a high side structure, 109 to 112. Bitcoin's still playing in that area. And realistically, where do things change now for the bulls? And that essentially we closed back above 116. I still need to see above 118. If we do start to see close above 116, that increases the chances that we go test 118 somewhere around this high side structure right here. This was a little bit, it's right around 118. It's 117,998. Above there, then we can entertain moves, back to the top side, 120 to 121, even 122 up here by the upper first standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands. Anywhere above there, looking essentially 123 to 125 over here, and then the highs again, possibly higher, around $128 to $130,000, somewhere around this upper second standard deviation. Even then, if it did race all the way back without seeing a squeeze on the bands, I'd be looking for rejections here. Just like if we did see another downside move towards the lows, I'd be looking for, first pass support, although it's closer. So if we did start to see it break down, first pass support from a daily level would be like, down on the 15-minute or hourly chart. And then if it does bounce from there and then fail in and around this side, then we'd be looking for possibly going lower. Otherwise, wide set bands likely to form a bit of a range. We see compression, then we see a real move from there. And, bulls need to see 116, 118 taken out to the top side. Nothing too crazy going on in it, outside of, what we were talking about on Monday. Let's go ahead and just reference the support and resistance zones of interest that I've been talking about for quite some time. I mentioned, if we did see a lower high here, watch right back to the weekly, right around 112. Anywhere below 112, we're right back in the midst of the dailies here. That's right where price is playing to, the 109.5 to 111 area. We saw, that if we do see the daily area breakdown, then it's 109. Anywhere below there, we're looking for a sweep of the lows. That 107 to 108 by that lower second. Don't want to see closes below. Otherwise, the 105, anywhere below there, 101 to 98, 225. Could it save itself, below the 105 region? Yes, on swings around a around a 103, 103.5. It's a big 1272 Fibonacci extension from the prior cycle on the macro. So that would be a big area. And, there is some confluence overhead, for a lot of things actually, right? If we see 113.5, be aware of this original swing low of this tighter consolidation range after breaking 112. After that was tested and then broken out of, we saw a tighter range up here where we saw that 116 essentially to 118 being the primary area of support as a zone with a swing outside of it, 114.750. Above 113.5, that's a big area to watch before getting to that main overhead resistance at 116 to 118. Any closes above 118, we're looking 120 to 121. Above there, we're looking 123 to 125. And then above there, shorts actually start to get repositioned or be forced to reposition back to, obviously no cover above the highs. Very little cover above 123 to 125 anyway. But then really having to position and start repositioning back to the highs and higher. That's where you could potentially see a run of the all-time high and start to hit those targets around 128 to 130, possibly even above. But right now, I don't see that happening without a concerted compression. Even if we did see another move to the downside, beware that even if it swung lower and hit some of those downside targets like 105, that it bounces back. If it bounces back up above that lower second, it's more likely to reverse and try to mean revert back up, get a compression and then expansion from there. Because you need to see really wide set bands like this when it's a range tends to cause more of a range. And then, downside areas that are confluent with supports for bands typically end up as pretty solid supports, even if they get swung through on lower term time frames. Same goes for upside resistances until we see a compression to expansion through areas of support or areas of resistance. And then we take it level by level again. Not much has changed in that regard. And, we can check on a few things here. Momentum now in the bearish control zone. There is a little bit of a mean reversion. No, actually, I'm lying. No, there's nothing there. 111.5. You start seeing closes that would shift essentially back above the daily lower first standard deviation, and 112 would kind of be the more interesting area to see closes on the daily. Then we would get a momentum shift. Doesn't mean much until we see a trend break back above, 116.1 right now. So right back into that main overhead resistance. Then things get interesting. We need to see the confluent areas of interest at 118 above the basis band here start to break for the bulls to get a chance back at the high side structure of the range. Nothing really interesting in terms of bullish divergence setups just yet either. Nothing too crazy going on here. So give it some time. We're coming in towards the end of the week. It is Wednesday, Thursday candles open. I'll talk to you again on Friday. Could we be in for more kind of screwy stuff? Maybe. We'll talk about longer term timeframes. I'll even get into some alts maybe. But realistically, we're not seeing any kind of crazy funding yet here. I just updated this, and open interest isn't rising dramatically. It is heading up a little bit on the bounces and then right back down as Bitcoin kind of forms this wider range around 116 with the low side coming in at 109.5. Major levels, right? Major resistance at that 116, and then a big daily level inside of a wider weekly 109 to 112. We've got that 109.5 to 111 on the dailies inside of a major weekly structure that the bulls want to hold. If it does not hold, likely going to, hit some of those targets to the downside. And then we reevaluate from there. Not, I mean, we had such a big open interest washout. I'm not really looking for like another major open interest washout. Not really seeing it in the funding rates just yet. They're kind of mixed every 8 hours, and, liquidations. There was a lot already liquidated. This isn't even going to be a fraction of what the liquidations are. I mean, we are seeing, still, I don't trust, by the way, the long short statistics. I actually am bringing this up because I got some questions about it DM'd to me, interestingly enough, today while I was fairly busy and out on the road. Look to funding rates. Funding starts getting really hot. You can just go look at some of the exchanges, right? It's nothing too crazy. Binance negative, about even on Bybit. This will update, and then this is going across stable margin contracts. And then, of course, the coin margin contracts. There's a lot less of the coin margin contracts. Although they are positive funding, there's a lot less volume on those. I would just pay attention to kind of the stable contracts, see where funding's at every 8 hours. If it really starts going negative short, and Bitcoin's ready to support, we got a lot of shorts piling in, and then if we got a lot of longs piling in at that same region, and funding starts to really ratchet up on the long side for long pay short, then, maybe it starts to dip down and try to take some of those stops and liquidation levels. But I'm not seeing like a concerted, expansive move from here just yet. The downside is a little bit precarious for the bulls right here. If it does lose the lower first, lower second, is a big area around that around that 102, right where perps hit. Spot did not. Right around that 101, 102 area by that lower second for the weekly. I would be expecting a very substantial amount of bids to come in there, and a lot of spot buying if that did happen. But I really wouldn't be looking for even a weekly move until we saw a breakdown below that big weekly at 101 to 98,225. Then it'd be a weekly expansion down. I mean, it still favors the bull setup here. A little less so if we start closing below the basis band on the weekly, but there's still some time to go for this weekly candle, and we'll see kind of how we end it, and then how we begin the new open next week. And I hope you all had a wonderful start to your week, and hopefully things are getting better for you. And if you weren't, and I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you're in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. With all that being said, land you out, and I'll talk to you again on Friday. Take care.